Well, welcome back to the Point of Life podcast. I'm Rev Ray, your host, and here we go. In our previous episodes, we've been talking about the your spiritual anatomy. Our last episode, we were talking about the chakras, their placement, their connection to the endocrine system, the abilities that are in them, and how they relate to how they create the aura, that electromagnetic field around the body. And today I thought we'd talk about the spiritual development of a human being, an incarnate being. 1 Corinthians 14:4 says that it's born a natural body, it is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. So, if you're ready, go ahead and ground and let's get to it. Now, when a baby is born, all the chakras are in place. It's a very faint aura, not too much life experience yet. And they say that that's when life begins, it's when the baby takes its first breath. But in reality, life doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end. So, in order to get on the planet, you have to have a plan. Really, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan to do pretty much anything once you get onto the planet. If you are planning a career, you have to plan it out. What do you need to get from here to there? If you're going to go to college, as part of your plan to have a career, what's your major going to be in? Are you going to have a minor? Where are you going to go to school? You have to have a plan. How are you going to pay for it? If you're opening a business, you have to have a plan. You have to have a business plan. So how much more important do you think it would be to have a plan for a lifetime? And so where does this plan begin? It just doesn't plan randomly when you're born. You think, well, since I'm here, I might as well do this, that, and the other. Actually, it begins before you were born. Neil Donald Walsh has a great little book called The Little Soul and the Sun that explains this process as a story. And I'd like to paraphrase the story for you if I can. It begins with, once upon, no time, no space, there was a little soul. And the little soul woke up one day and said, I am the light. I am the light. I'm the light. So excited, he went to God. He says, I am the light. And God said, well, of course you are. And the little soul says, yes, I want to be the light. And God says, well, you already are the light. He says, yes, but I know that I'm the light, and I can be the light, but I want to experience being the light. And God says, well, you could do that, but that could be very difficult to do right off the bat. So, tell you what, why don't you decide what aspect of the light you would like to be? And the little soul says, well, gosh, I don't know. What are my choices? And God says, well, there's an infinite amount of choices. And God creates this rainbow, beautiful rainbow, full of all the different colors of the rainbow. And God says, you can choose any color of this rainbow. Which aspect of the light do you want to be? And the little soul says, ooh, I like that light blue color. That draws my attention right there, yeah. God says, very well. You can be that light blue color, and we can create situations where other colors come into play that will allow you to be that light blue color, and you can experience yourself in the reality of and in your experience of being that light blue color. And the little soul says, well, how am I going to do that? He says, well, we'll think of something. And just then, a lot of other little souls came running around because they see this great conversation happening. And one by one, they kept saying, yes, I'll help you, I'll help you, I'll help you, I'll help you. We can do this, I can be that. I can be this and you can be that. Now, some of these souls already had a body in this lifetime. This is what some people refer to as having spiritual contracts. These are, and spiritual agreements. These are where that comes from. So the little soul says, okay, I've got my plan together, I got my color, and that color is going to become his soul essence, her soul essence. The body is taking form in the womb of the mother, and the little soul is, at this point, it's a totally integrated point of light. And so through the gestation period, this integrated point of light starts to disintegrate, bringing in all this information into the body, one by one, which is creating the chakras. And the chakras are helping to create the body, along with mom's DNA, dad's DNA, its own DNA. And sometimes the mother has an issue with this foreign energy, seemingly foreign energy, coming into her space. And the body can react to that. This is what we call morning sickness. So once the mother gets that the energy in affinity with herself, the morning sickness will die down and go away. So at the moment of birth, the body is being created, the information's downloading, and it's time to come out and play. The baby being, at this point, comes in through the mother's crown chakra, down in through her body, into the body of that it's been creating for the past 7 to 9 months, and is born. And as it's born, it goes through the veil of forgetfulness, so it doesn't have to be burdened by all the past life memories and the past life karma and the past life stuff. Not bringing it in, we're going to start fresh. Spank on the bottom, tie off the umbilical cord, cut the cord. The reason they cut the cord is because if they don't, the baby might go. That was a joke. And we have a newborn baby. Hallelujah. Welcome to Earth. The first 4 years of the development of a being in a body, it has been born a natural body, and now we're going to raise it as a spiritual body. The first 4 years is primarily the lower chakras, the first, second, and third, and fourth chakra. Now the other chakras are communicating and they're getting their information out as well. But that first year is primarily survival. First chakra. Survival, being fed, being warm, kept warm, being nurtured, being learning how to be in a body, getting its diapers changed, feeding, napping, sleeping. And that first year, yes, a baby can start smiling and laughing a little bit, but primarily the first year is all about survival, staying alive. The second year, the second chakra starts to integrate into the beingness, and those emotions start running, and we call those the terrible twos. There's a reason we call it the terrible twos. It's because the second chakra is kicking in and all those emotions are starting to come out. And the baby can laugh, the baby can cry. Of course it can cry when it's a year old or 9 months old or 6 months old. But primarily it's the second chakra. The emotions are coming into play. Of course, the baby can start to communicate in these first few years, not with words. Infants don't communicate with words because they haven't learned the language yet. And they communicate, spirit communicates in mental image pictures, mathematical formulas, and geometric constructions, geometric shapes. If you'd like to try this out sometime, next time you see an infant, you might think about saying hello and what that looks like as a mathematical equation, and then show it to the baby and see if they smile. It's kind of neat. So that's, and the first couple of years, the baby is more out of its body than it is in the body, because it's still identifying as a spiritual being, and it can see energy, it can see other spirit guides and ancestors and other spirit, other energy. The third year, the third chakra starts kicking in, being integrated, and in that third year, its personal power is ramping up. Now, by 2 years old, they should be crawling and starting to lift themselves up on a table and start walking. By the age of 3, they should be walking pretty well and trotting, maybe not running, but trotting. You know how they dee 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 dee. That's their personal power. And also they're learning no, the word no, both saying no and being told no, just for their own safety. So those are the first 3 years, and then the 4th year, the baby is now a toddler, walking, talking, but not in perhaps complete sentences, not in clear, distinct words and sentences, but they are communicating on a verbal level, and the affinity levels are there. They learn who to like, who not to like. If they have siblings, there's some that they get along with, some maybe they don't get along with. They're understanding what their relationship is in the world around them. And that's pretty much the first 4 years of our spiritual development. It's all body issues, staying alive, having emotions, our own personal willpower. Of course, the third chakra, the astral travel, that has never really turned off since birth. A baby will dream quite phenomenally. And then that's the 4th year, affinity, relationships start to gel, and then the 5th through 7th years, it's more of the intellect coming in. The 5th chakra, the creativity, the communication abilities. There's a reason that children aren't allowed to go to school until they're 5, is because they haven't spiritually developed enough to have communication and form relationships with other people. And that's a prime time to do that. Some people do this, or some babies do this a little bit quicker than others. Some start in the 4th year, developing friendships and relationships and playmates. By the 5th year, that ability is pretty well there. And they are still telepathic. They still are using In some cases, they're still using mathematical formulas to communicate, geometric progressions to communicate, but mostly they're thinking in words now. The 6th year, the imagination really kicks in. They become much more playful. They can run now. By the time they're 4, they can run. 5, they can run. And the 6th year, it's the completeness of learning how to communicate, their imagination, their birth order is understood. We'll have an episode on birth order and how it relates to spiritual relationships in a future episode, not right now. But by the 6th year, it's pretty well set as to their siblings, where they are: firstborn, middle child, lastborn. If there's 6 children and they're the 4th, then they'll be a middle child and have the tendencies of the middle child until the next one is born. Then more on that later. By the 7th year, they have pretty much started to create an identity for themselves. Speaking clearly, imagining, and at this point, we need to talk about the 3 aspects of the soul that come in on those first 3, or the first 7 years. Hold on a second. But before we get into that, it's kind of interesting. We just discussed how the chakras begin to get integrated year by year, and it goes from the 1st chakra up to the 7th chakra. On a body level, what's kind of interesting is that a body will develop from the head down. What I mean by that is a brand new infant, newborn, for the first 6 months or so, it could pretty much only lay on its back, lay on its front, lay on its side, sit in a child seat, be cuddled in your arms, and that's pretty much it. It will be on the floor or in the crib, and it'll just be kind of looking around, the head resting. The first thing that happens, he learns how to raise his head up a little bit and start looking around. And then from there, it can push itself up on its shoulders and look around. And then after a while, it becomes good with that. It'll start trying to move and raise itself up on its knees and start learning how to crawl. And then after a few months of that, we'll hang on to a table and see if they can pull themselves up and balance. Not too well, they might fall and go boom. But finally they can stand up and maybe take the edge of the table and walk along, and then the first steps, it can walk. So it starts from the head, being able to lift up. The shoulders are strong enough, it can push itself up, look around, learns how to crawl, coming down into the hips and the knees, pulls itself up, feet, starts walking. Yay! So that happens usually, So that usually happens in the first year to 18 months. And then after that, after they learn how to walk, then they can kind of trot. And by the age of 3, their personal power, they can learn how to run away from mom and dad who were trying to catch them. I'm going to put you to bed. Come on, no, you can't catch me. You can't catch me. I remember those days. So, after 7 years, most of the chakras are integrating themselves into the development of the body. And then we have to talk about the three aspects of the soul. The three aspects of the soul, there's the feeling self, and there is the reasoning self, and then there is the higher self. The feeling self comes in around the age of 4, and it settles in a space right behind the heart, right behind the 4th chakra. Not in the 4th chakra, but connected to it. And the feeling self, it will take experiences and put an emotion to them, the 2nd chakra, and start to create memories. A lot of people don't have memories in those first 4 years, or if they do, they're very sporadic. My earliest memory was when I was learning how to walk. There was 4 steps down from our front porch to a walkway that would take us to the driveway. And I can distinctly remember, and still see it very clearly, that there was a hose laying across the walkway. And as I got to the hose, I thought to myself, oh, that was there yesterday. I tripped over it. So I have to be sure to walk over the hose and not trip. And I did. So that was my earliest memory, and that was at about 18 months old. I don't know, maybe 8 months old. So there's not very many memories in those first 4 years that we can recall. There are some, but there's not very many. It's not like you could remember what happened last Tuesday if you even knew what Tuesday was at that point. So the feeling self is it will take experiences and make associations, cross-reference with other experiences, good, bad, neutral, that kind of thing, and file away all these memories, and it learns how to navigate through its environment. The reasoning self comes in around the age of 7. Between 7 and 14, the reasoning self is developed, and this is more analytical, logical. It can learn rules, learn how to behave, and it also cross-references with what the memories are from the feeling aspect of the soul, the feeling self. And it will accept and it will make rules. It becomes very analytical. And it's developed between the ages of 7 and 14. This is kind of the time when the imagination has less of an interplay with what's going on in the world, and it's more structured living. The higher self is in the 8th chakra. It maintains that soul essence color that the baby being chose from the rainbow. It sits above the head, about 18 to 24 inches above the head, up in the 8th chakra. And it's like the North Star, the guiding light, the God of your heart is there. And around the age of 7, We talked about in the different chakras, the abilities therein. We had clairsentience in the second chakra, clairaudience in the fifth chakra, clairvoyance in the sixth chakra. Knowingness in the seventh chakra. And these things can get programmed out or influenced out. You might have imaginary friends when you were up to the age of 6 or 7, and then those imaginary friends kind of fade into the background, or they're kept secret. If a child up to the age of 6 to 7 can see auras and see beings and ghosts and spirits, that ability is kind of, we're programmed to kind of not use that anymore. Probably because our parents can't use it. But even then, I knew of many psychic children that, in fact, there was a school for psychic children at the institute where I did my training. And a lot of those children, when they became teenagers, they thought that all this clairvoyant stuff was kind of, there's a better way of living. Now, the higher self, it just kind of hangs out over the head, and being the directing force, it will never get in the way. The feeling self, the reasoning self, and the higher self, they can all act independently, and a lot of times they do. Your heart says you want to do one thing, and your head says no. The reasoning self, it is behind the sixth chakra, at just above the cerebral vortex, in the analyzer. We'll get into that in another episode as well. Most decisions are made on an emotional level. Major decisions are made on an emotional level. And then you have to think about it, analyze it, figure out how you're going to, let's just take the instance of, I need a vacation. Okay, the feeling self is agreeing on that. The reasoning self is agreeing on that. The higher self is agreeing on that. The feeling self says, oh, I want to go to Hawaii for a vacation. And then the reasoning self will say, I don't know if we want to go to Hawaii. Maybe it's something else we want to do. Maybe we want to go to Europe instead, or perhaps we should go to the Caribbean, or I've always wanted to go on a safari down in Africa. And how are we going to pay for this? And when are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Are we going to do it by ourselves? Do we want to go with other people? And the higher self is like, hey, I'm all on board. Whatever you guys want, let's do it. You guys decide. But the heart and the head don't always play well together. If there's a break in the body-being communication, the feeling self might just give over to the reasoning self. You make the decision. Prior to the age of 4, most of the decision making or the following is given up to a trusted adult. A parent, a grandparent, aunt, uncle, family member, older siblings at times, babysitters, all those that they feel that they are the leaders. They'll just follow the leader. And let's do a little story. This time, once upon a time, instead of no time. the feeling self and the reasoning self were out in the yard, and the feeling self says, "Hey, let's play ball." And the reasoning self says, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." So, and the higher self is in the kitchen, looking out the kitchen window, just watching these two aspects of the soul playing. That knows that they're safe, everything's fine. The feeling self takes the ball and just, instead of hiking it, the reasoning self says, take the ball, you hike it to me, and then you run, and I'll throw it to you, and you catch it. Sounds like a plan, right? So the feeling self takes the ball, he just picks it up, starts running around with it. And the reasoning self says, "Wait a minute, that's not what we said. Come back here." And so he's laughing and coming back and puts the ball down. He says, "No, this time you hike the ball to me, and then you run, I'll throw it to you." And okay, let's try it. Takes the ball and picks it up and starts running with it. And the reasoning self says, No, I'm being left out of this game. This isn't fun for me. Come on now, let's come back here. Gets the reasoning self, or the feeling self, back. Let's try it again. The feeling self hikes the ball and just starts running. The reasoning self goes to throw the ball, but he can't. The feeling self isn't turning around to receive the ball. Finally, after exasperation, the feeling self and the reasoning self are not on the same game plan. So the reasoning self says to the higher self, looking at all this going on, "Can you help us?" And the higher self says, "Absolutely, positively." Comes outside and stays outside of the playing field for now. Explains to the feeling self, it works best if you hike the ball, run, and then turn around and to catch the ball. "Oh, I get it. Yeah, that's fine." And it says to the reasoning self, "Now you have to take the ball and wait for him to be open, and then you can throw the ball." "Yeah, that sounds great. And so they try it. Feeling self hikes the ball, starts running. The feeling self waits for him to open. He turns around, throws the ball. The feeling self catches it. Yay! They make a touchdown. Woohoo! And the higher self says, "See, that's how you play. Isn't it great when the three of us play together?" The feeling self in the heart, the higher self in the brain, and the higher self still outside the body. They asked Jesus, what was the greatest commandment? He says, the first and greatest commandment is to love your God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. When these three aspects of the self are in communication, wonderful things can happen. The intentions that the being started out with, the spirit started out with, can be remembered and worked through and worked on, and you got heaven on earth. So those are the three selves. By the time the reasoning self has been pretty well integrated, those next 7 years, from 7 to 14, different levels of the chakras start opening up. The first and second chakras start opening up at the sexuality. That's why girls go into puberty right around the age of between 7 and 9, closer to 9. Boys a little longer, but they start getting those emotional urges around 7 and 9. The personal power, having responsibilities, doing chores, cleaning up after themselves, getting along with other family members, becoming a dynamic in the family unit. That happens in these between 7 and 14. The imagination is there, and it's guided by the intellect, the logic, the analyzing. And by 14, the whole dynamic of a soul in the body is pretty well set. And this is why around the age of 14 in Catholic religions and Catholics, Episcopalians, Methodists, etc., around the age of 14 they have their first communion, and they go to catechism class, and then they have their first communion around the age of 14. Age of 13 to 14, the bar mitzvah, the bat mitzvah happens in the Jewish culture. These ceremonies are a validation of and a blessing of that spirit in a body to have free communication with God, with the God of their heart. And right around the age of 14, that reasoning self is pretty well developed, and that young adult will start looking around and saying, hey, these rules don't fit me. I want to find my own independence. I want to act on my own. I want to set my own rules. And with guidance, they can do that. And sometimes they do it without guidance. Well, it all depends on their life experiences so far and what they're into. They might not be inclined to be searching for their spiritual path yet. But they start to become more independent, and between 14 and 21, by the time they reach 21, they're mature enough that they can start acting on their own. We can't vote until we're 21, and there's a reason for that, because prior to that, you might not have the life experience, the education, or the wherewithal to be able to make a decision that might affect you for the rest of your life. Although you can go into the armed forces around the age of 18. They figure that you've developed enough to be able to take commands and follow through on them, follow the rules, and get along with your other comrades. And for a lot of states in the United States, the legal drinking age is 21. There's a reason for that, because that's when you're developed enough to be a decision-making adult. Pretty much be able to call your own shots, make mistakes, learn from them, and it goes on and on. Every 7 years, they say that the body regenerates itself. Every cell in the body has been replaced by new cells. So this body that you have right now, different body than it was 7 years ago, 8 years, 10 years. And as you get older, you start to realize that, the body does regenerate itself. Maybe not as well as you would like it to, but anyway, so that's the pretty much the development of a spiritual being in a physical body. End this by saying that near the end of the life, some things can happen if a person passes naturally from natural causes. There are some conditions that can happen with the chakras. Chakras will get overloaded, start closing down. If 3 or more chakras in the body close down, it's a condition known as going into a coma. And that's what a coma is, when 3 or more chakras are closed down. This is, people go into a coma and they come out of it. They've gone out to the astral and reevaluated everything. They did a little spiritual self-evaluation and decided that they were going to continue on, and this is how they're going to do it, or they don't. At the time of death, of a physical death, 3 or more chakras will shut down. The being will either go out the top of its head or out the 3rd chakra, out the 7th or the 3rd. Those are the exits of the body. And when it goes, it kind of corkscrews out. I've seen this happen. I have seen the passing of the spirit from the body into heaven. And it's quite phenomenal to see that spiraling. It just looks like a little tornado heading out, and it pulls all the information up and out of the chakras as much as it can. And it continues to do this. As it continues to do this, the body will disintegrate, dust to dust. When Jesus did this, he started pulling the information out of each of the chakras, and it started to unravel so quickly that it went boom, and the whole body went boom, and it actually left a image on his burial cloth, the Shroud of Turin. At that point, there's a whole nother dynamic that happens in heaven, and but the soul looks back on that lifetime and looks at the initial color that it chose for this lifetime, in this example, light blue, and it sees how much of that light blue it has accomplished, when it accomplished it, how it accomplished it. And it goes into the Akashic records. When a soul has attained that color masterfully and has experienced itself as that aspect of God and brought that out into the world, and it was a complete and total success, then that blue ring will turn gold. And it's a golden lifetime. Now, in the beginning of all of this, there was an inheritance. When a baby is conceived, it inherits the father's DNA, and it also inherits the mother's DNA and God's DNA. So from the beginning, the God's DNA is the kingdom of heaven. And we'll have to do a whole episode on that. But your inheritance that you're waiting for in this lifetime, it's already happened. You have all the information, you've had all the experience you need in order to fulfill the purpose of your being here. I hope this has been a fun and entertaining, maybe enlightening little discussion of the life cycle of an incarnate being. If it is, then please feel free to like, subscribe, share, and leave your comments if you would like more information on any aspect of this little discussion. Leave them in the comments. I will be sure to read them and either respond to them directly there in the comments, or else I will create a different episode just on the comment section. All right? Well, it's a beautiful day here. I think I'm going to go enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy your day as well. And we will talk with you at a later date and time. Go with God.